Hello, happy Sunday, or whenever you're watching this. This week I thought that I would do a video on some of the things that after I moved here, I was kind of surprised to find out about. And I hadn't really done a lot of research on Panama. I literally just, visited once, visited a second time, and then decided that it was the place for me. So these are just some of the things that over time I have found like, oh, this is different, or, this is kind of surprising, and thought I'd share them with you. Let me know what you have found if you're living in Panama, what you found that was different or an adjustment to get used to for you. And I'll see you at the end of the video. One thing is that the banking system is a little more complicated. When I first moved to Panama and was applying for my Friendly Nations visa and had to go set up a bank account, I didn't realize that I had to be introduced to someone at the bank. Like, you can't just walk into a bank and deposit money to open an account. I had to have a letter of recommendation from my bank, which good luck getting anything from Wells Fargo, with a human signature. I had to have tax return. I had to have statement, prior bank statements. And so it's not as, straightforward or easy as I was thinking that it was going to be. And once I, had my account, it was fine. My first account was at Multi-Bank. They had a branch in Coronado, but they ended up closing that branch. So I ended up going with Global Bank because they had a branch in Coronado. And even though I live in El Valle, it's not too far of a drive to go down, to Coronado to the bank. And I did just hear recently that Multi-Bank got bought out by another bank, and now people are having problems, navigating the system, and their passwords aren't working and their PIN numbers aren't working, and they can't get their money out, and things can be a little bit more complicated with that. And also, I did close, that account. Actually, that wasn't too difficult. So that really wasn't a big surprise. But just the fact that opening an account was not as easy or straightforward as I thought that it would be. Another kind of money thing is that depending on where you are in Panama, don't have anything greater than a $20 bill. If you're in a small town, try not to have a $50 bill. Definitely do not have a $100 bill. Even in Coronado, I had a $100 bill and, was looked at suspiciously, and they, do some kind of special scanning of the bill to make sure it's not counterfeit. So it's easier just to have lower denominations of bills. The other thing that was kind of surprising to me was, now this only happened at one bank, so I don't know if this is a general practice, but I wasn't able to change a $100 bill into smaller denominations because I didn't have an account at that branch. So I don't know if that was just a one-off circumstance, but the bank told me that I couldn't, break down 100 because I wasn't a client. Let's move on to the availability of products. I didn't realize that I, wasn't going to be able to find certain things all the time. And I've gotten used to this over the years, but I would say even in Coronado, at some of the grocery stores, you might not find broccoli, you might not find cauliflower one day. Here in El Valle, at our store, they could be out of onions like they're out of garlic right now. I actually had to buy garlic when I was down in Coronado the other day. So this has been for many things, like from bed sheets to measuring cups. And I might not find it at the moment, but then like months later, I'll see them everywhere. But with food in particular, and this doesn't really apply to the city because in Panama City, everything is available all the time, it seems. But when you get out away from the larger cities like Panama City and David, things, can be different. I was at Reba Smith yesterday. There was no broccoli and no cauliflower. I was thinking specifically that I would pick up some of those, but they had asparagus, so I picked up some asparagus. So you definitely have to be flexible with, recipes and cooking. You kind of have to go to the store and see what's available and go with that, instead of having like a recipe in mind and then, trying to find all the products that are going to fit into that recipe. I did know that, Western imports would be more expensive, and there's plenty of alternatives to try. But yeah, I didn't realize that there would be like things that I just wasn't going to be able to find on occasion. You get very spoiled in the US with the grocery stores and the availability. But here, it's the element of surprise. Will they have garlic? Will they have onions? Will I find broccoli? You never know. Keeps you fresh. I don't think that I anticipated driving was going to take as much mental energy as it does driving here in Panama. I've driven all over the US, I've driven in different countries, but I don't know, it just seems like you have to have a certain level of concentration when you are driving in Panama. In the city, it can be chaos. It's just chaos, and that's stressful. But when you start adding in the layers of things that you have to look out for example, in the city, when you're leaving the city at certain times when there's traffic, there are vendors that'll set up in the middle of the lanes. So you have to be careful that you're not going to hit a vendor. You have to be careful that you're not going to hit a motorcyclist that's going to go like within an inch of your car. And then, when there's no traffic, you still have to be concerned about the motorcyclists, but you also then have to be a very observant driver, because there are people who will speed, there are people who will tailgate you within an inch and then like zip around. There's people who drive regularly on the shoulder of the road. So if you happen to be in like the right lane and you're going to be exiting, you actually have to be mindful that there's nobody zipping past. I know I'm using zipping a lot, but that's kind of accurate. That there's no one going, fast on your right-hand side to pass you on the shoulder before, you want to take a right-hand exit. In towns like Coronado, traffic, people not signaling, dogs could be running around, people are crossing the road, speeding trucks, potholes. Those are always, a possibility that you're going to find. The road conditions vary greatly. The road to El Valle just got paved, and I'm going to go show you like some pretty video from driving down that road, and I'll talk a little more about the driving in Panama. One thing as a precaution, even if you see like what looks like flat grass on the side of the road, don't assume that it's flat grass. It could actually have like a little canal for water runoff, And so what looks like flat grass could actually be like a big dip. And even if it is flat, if it's rainy season, it could be flooded and full of mud, and then it'll take forever to get out. So there's always the possibility for potholes, dogs, people, chickens, and you have to be on high alert. All right, let's look at some pretty scenery. And I wasn't holding the camera during this. I had it on my camera mount. I'm heading down to Coronado, and I thought maybe I would just show you a little bit of the drive. I just passed through 2 sections of where the road has alternating lanes because they're trimming trees and they're putting down new pavement. So this road to and from El Valle is so much better than it used to be. We had so many potholes. I actually broke a tire rim on one of these potholes a couple years ago. This is why I don't recommend driving this at night. Years ago, when I first arrived in Panama for a visit, I made the mistake of driving from Panama City at night to Altos del Moria. And I just figured, oh, I've driven across the US in my RV. I've driven in New York, Ohio, Massachusetts, like some of the, craziest drivers. And that was just a mistake because driving in Panama just has its own unique challenges. Some of the challenges that I went through leaving the city at night were, 1, leaving the city at night. Sometimes the road wasn't clearly painted and marked, and maybe there were a few lanes, and then lanes would just stop. They wouldn't merge into another lane. It would just stop. And if you don't know that ahead of time, it's very startling. Another thing is just how aggressive the drivers can be in Panama. They'll often, go over the line, they'll tailgate, weaving in and out of cars and lanes. And so it's very stressful. When you're driving during the day, it's a lot easier, obviously, to see the potholes, but you still have the issues of people speeding, tailgating, maybe not driving super safely, and you just have to be on alert. And on the windy mountain roads, like here, is a school, and you have to really be aware of kids crossing. Again, lots of dogs, and the dogs will just lay in the middle of the road. I guess they like the heat. I don't know why they do that, because Panama's hot enough. I don't know why they lie on the pavement in the middle of the road, but that's what they do. And so you just have to be on alert. When you drive out up toward Cherokee, it's open highway, large stretches of open road. It's really beautiful. And I think there is the least stressful driving. Now, of course, that changes when you get into David and then, going up to Volcan or Boquete. But the drive from Santiago to David is really, really pretty. If you are taking that drive, stop in Santiago for a restroom break, picking up some snacks, because there's not much at all from Santiago to David. And make sure you have gas. So this is a gorgeous day. It is our rainy season, but this is what rainy season can look like. We'll have some sunny days, or at least like the morning into the afternoon will be sunny. And then on a day like today, we might get a little sprinkle or rain shower later in the afternoon. And then some days will just be gray and a lot of rain on and off throughout the whole day. So the rainy season kind of accumulates in intensity. And we are in June. And so July, there'll be a little more rain. August, a little more. September, a lot more. October, very rainy, gray, gloomy. Here in El Valle, at least. There are parts of Panama that don't get as much rainfall, but in El Valle we get a lot of rain in the rainy season. So sometimes what I'll do is just drive down the mountain chasing the sun. I'll do my errands in Coronado or maybe Panama just to get out of the gloominess of the gray and the rain and the humidity, and for a change of scenery. And parts of Panama that are a little drier. The Coronado area is kind of known as the dry arc. And then I think also on the Azuero Peninsula, there are areas that are a little drier, not as much rainfall. That would be like where Las Tablas, Pedasí, Playa Venal are located. So that's my little chat while we're driving down the mountain, and I'll catch up with you again. I really wasn't aware of how often the power would go out, and how often maybe the internet might drop at different times from the power being out. And on occasion, the water can be affected, especially down in Gorgona and Coronado area. I didn't expect to get used to it. When it first would go through, the power outages, I would immediately try and message people or get online and, ask, like, is this a planned outage? Do we know how long it's going to be? Was always concerned about how long it's going to be out. Is it going to come back? And now that I have some backup systems in place, I don't have a generator at my house, but I have, the headlamp you'll see in the upcoming video when the power was out for 7 hours. And I have a battery charger for my phone, and then I have a larger battery pack, and I have a couple of lamps, but I think they might be broken at the moment. When you have backup systems, it becomes easier to deal with. So now when the power goes out, I usually just wait. Maybe I'll check Facebook and see if anybody posted anything after like 30 minutes or so. And then if it's longer than that, I'll start, asking, like, anybody else have power out? Typically they're not long. This one that was 7 hours was, that was long. And obviously those are a pain because you can lose food. But if you freeze some bottles of water, if you're home and the power goes out, you can put one of those frozen ice bottles in the fridge, and that can help keep temperatures cooler in the fridge. At that power outage, I don't think I had anything, questionable in the fridge, but when you've survived food poisoning, you get very cautious about food safety. So yeah, I kind of just get used to them, put on some candles, and then when it comes back, it's a nice bonus surprise. Well, the power's been out for about 7 hours now, and I thankfully have this awesome headlamp. It's the Next Torch E-Star 1300 lumens headlamp. It's rechargeable. I got it complimentary, and I did a review video. And since then, I've used it mostly at night in the garden to look for leafcutter ants, which I could do now, actually, because it's probably very dark outside. No street lights, I'm assuming. But we haven't had a power outage like this in a while. Typically, you know, it might be out for like a couple of hours, but it is really unusual. Not really unusual. It's not typical to have it be out for, 7 hours. And at first I wasn't sure if it's just me, because I posted in the community WhatsApp group and didn't hear from anyone whether they were having issues. And then I posted on Facebook, and there are people that were having issues. I am gonna go check for leaf cutters because it stopped raining, and there were some leaf cutters showing up in an area that I was not suspecting that they would be. Let's see. So I couldn't vacuum the casita today because you need electricity to do that. Okay, this is good. I don't see any leaf cutters. Oh no, there is one. Oh no, I don't know what that is. Can you see that? It's like going in the hole of the concrete. I have no idea if that's a leaf cutter. I don't have my glasses on to see if it's got like the typical cutting pincers, but wow, he's determined to get in there. All sorts of creatures come out at night. Well, anyway, there were a whole bunch of leaf cutters around here, but they do not seem to be back. Let me go look in another spot. Wow, it is really dark out here when there's no light. My gardener planted this new gardenia plant today, got it in the ground. So it's nice that it's getting some rain. I actually feel really cool tonight. Maybe because of the rain. Let's see, this is where I saw a leaf cutter going into an entrance, and I don't see any activity. So that's good. I'm gonna check one other spot. And I did see an agouti today. It didn't come up close, but at least, I saw it. All right, this is another spot where there had been, oh yeah, there's one. I don't know if you can see him, but I'm gonna go back and get the spray because that I think is an entrance hole. And my gardener had just planted this plant. And this is actually a fragrant yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It smells amazing. Okay, I'm gonna go get that horrible poison spray that only kills the ants. I'm gonna try and remember where this is. Maybe I'll put this rock right there. Okay. Should I do nighttime garden tours? We could look for insects and frogs. All right, gonna go poison and hope the lights come back on. Power's still out. It's about 8:15, so got my pajamas on. I'm gonna do my Duolingo and my foot exercises and call it a night. So I reported it to Naturgy. You have to make an online report that the power is out, and that's it. I mean, it's got to be something major for it to be this long, because having an outage for this many hours is not common. And that's it. Feather's up here. She's gonna have to keep me warm because it's chilly. The power will come back, I'm sure, at some point in the middle of the night and wake me up as everything starts to electrify through the house. Do you guys see that cat on the chair behind me? He's a feral, and I was gonna try and trap him and get him neutered at the recent spay neuter clinic, but I couldn't get a trap. So I've been feeding him to try and, you know, lure him in. Now he's lured. And so I've been feeding him. I think he's actually like a really sweet cat. Too skittish. I can't get too close to him. And so anyway, I will try and get him to a clinic the next time it's around. Okay, this next point is about retail shopping, and that I wasn't prepared for how challenging it might be to make a return on a product, and also how challenging it could be to get warranty service on a product that you buy. So you just have to get in that mindset that if you buy something, if it's at a bigger store, ask what the return policy is, make sure you're clear on it, and make sure that you're going to return it within that set amount of time, and that, like, don't let it linger in your car, like, oh, I'll get to the store to take it back as soon as possible. Some stores will actually test a product before you take it out of the store to make sure that it works, and that's actually a good policy, because you know, if it doesn't work, then at least you're in the store and they can replace it. But even so, you know, some stores will just kind of look at you funny if you want to return something, if, you know, something isn't functioning correctly, or if it's just like the wrong size, or you just, you know, don't want it, thought you had a need for something and you don't. Just be mindful of that. Also, again, remember, it depends on what part of Panama that you're in. Things in the city might be very different than things in the countryside, obviously. And then you have Santiago and David. And then the warranty part. So when I got a brand new fridge for the casita, when I removed the fridge, you know, from the box and had it like installed, oh no, it wasn't the fridge, it was the washer dryer, and the dryer handle just like popped off. And I got it at Panafoto in Costa Verde, I ordered like a couple of appliances, and so it was easier to order there and get them delivered. But the dryer handle popped off, so you could not open the dryer door. And it took literally like 2.5 months to get someone to come and look at the dryer. They did send someone, but it took a long time. And, you know, I couldn't really put my place on Airbnb without the washer dryer working properly. And I'm actually really glad that I didn't tell the rep just, you know, oh, just forget it, I'll figure it out, because it was a lot more complex than I would have thought. You know, just replacing the handle on the dryer. So I'm glad that I did have them do that, but just keep in mind that warranty on items may be different than, you know, what you're used to from where you're coming from. So this next part is like twofold. It's about healthcare, and I knew that getting healthcare would be affordable, and that's why my plan was just to pay as I go, you know, pay as I needed healthcare. But what I didn't understand is that the distance to private healthcare would be a great distance from where I chose to live in El Valle. There's two systems in Panama. You have the public healthcare system and the private healthcare system. And if you saw my video on my surgery, you know that I had gone to the public hospital in San Carlos to try and get some information on what was causing my pain. Now, this was at night, and they didn't have a technician for the ultrasound machine. And if they'd had a technician, I probably would have been admitted. And then it was 2 days later that I went to a different public hospital in Panama, and it took about 9 hours to get admitted. They weren't going to. I had to wait all that time for them to decide to give me an ultrasound. Once they gave me the ultrasound, then they admitted me like immediately, but it took 9 hours of waiting. And the public hospital, it's not super comfortable, you know, it's not convenient. I mean, and it's slow. You know, you wait longer for things. The probability that there'll be someone who speaks English is very low. My doctor, my surgeon spoke English, and there was one intern, like a resident, who was doing rounds at one point when I, you know, was eventually admitted for my surgery, who spoke some English. And, but it was kind of eye-opening that, for two things, you know, one was that if I'd had insurance, that would have covered me in a private hospital. And the other thing was that I really didn't want to be just part of the public healthcare system, because for me, it would be worth it to, you know, pay for the care and convenience of a more modern facility. The hospital where I was just, you know, very minimal, very minimal. I had a friend bring me a pillow and a blanket and some juice. Still, thank you, Suzanne and Javi. That was such a lifesaver. And there's no hot water in the shower. There may or may not be toilet paper. The rooms are freezing, which I understand. They need to, you know, keep the germs at bay. But there's no, you know, there's no blankets, so you have to bring your own blanket. And with 6 people in a room, And with visitors who are talking or on their phones playing games, and there's no seeming rules about, visiting hours, it's kind of hard to rest. And so, after roughing it in the public hospital system, that's when I decided to get health insurance, which then would cover me at a specific hospital in Panama City. And they also have a hospital in the Veraguas province for the plan that I have. There are a multitude of plans that cover different hospitals. There's some very top-notch hospitals in Panama City, but that's the thing. They're in the city. There's no private hospital between El Valle and Panama City. So whatever's, going to happen, I would have to go to Panama City. And I guess I really wasn't aware of that fact, that private hospital, which I would much prefer now that I've experienced public hospital, is going to be 2.5 hours away. And this is reshaping how I'm thinking about the next 20 years. That'll be, a different video. So next topic is going to be insurance. And that's one of the things that I also didn't realize how inexpensive it would be. Okay, this video is getting longer than I had wanted it to be, so I'm gonna try and just speed through the rest of them. So the next one is insurance. I'm gonna talk about health insurance, car insurance, and home insurance. Health insurance is very affordable. When I finally decided to get health insurance, it's only costing me $130 a month, but that's because I have a very bare bones plan, and it's only for one hospital in Panama City. I did a tour of the hospital. There's a video that you can go watch. For me, it's fine. It looks great, and they have all sorts of different departments, everything, from kidneys to brain, lungs, heart, dermatology, rheumatology. So I'm happy with my decision to go with that plan. That plan, I'm allowed 3 pre-existing conditions, and I had high cholesterol, in the past, because the medication that I've been taking has worked, and my levels are now normal, which is great. Car insurance, you can buy it online. Brokers do not make a lot of money on selling you a policy, and so it's not really, don't expect full service from a broker who sells you a policy. You can just buy it online, and if you have issues, just call their 800 number or equivalent. You can also just get a fixer, a helper, to help you navigate some things. But car insurance is definitely very different. It can be a pain to get them to pay out, like I experienced when I got hit by the Naturgy truck. I hear stories all the time about people that have had problems, but then I hear stories where people, don't have any problems and they get paid out and everything goes smooth. So just be aware that, it could be different. And make sure that you're going with a company that has a lot of recommendations. Home insurance, that's an easy one. It's not really a thing here. Maybe in some parts of Panama it is, and actually where there might be flooding, I would, definitely look into having home insurance. I don't have any home insurance. The whole house, there's nothing flammable, really. It's glass and metal and concrete. If there's any damage, what I would have to pay for my deductible would be sufficient, to cover most things. Yes, there's an off chance that, the house is going to collapse. In fact, somebody's house down at the beach did collapse into the ocean. It got swept away. And I don't know if he had homeowner's insurance. But anyway, that is not really, it's not really a thing. Another thing that I found, just very different and wasn't really expecting is that having a lawyer is something that's very common. In the US, you didn't really need a lawyer unless you were, going through a legal process of some kind. But having a lawyer in Panama is just very helpful for any type of contract review, or, you email them to kind of check if, is this right? Is this legal? Is that accurate? And my lawyer handled my real estate contract. I had her make a will, and, have asked her things on multiple occasions. And so you'll often see in the Facebook group, someone will say, like, ask your attorney, ask your attorney, ask your attorney. And it's a good idea just to have a trusted attorney. On to the next. It's about real estate. I had no idea that buying would be so easy and selling could be so hard. Of course, I didn't know anything about Panama's real estate market when I visited Panama, and I just assumed that it was the same type of market as it is in the US. And even in the US, it varies, right, from place to place. But the market is so different here, and the way things are done is very different. And I'm, with my property tour videos, I'm always encouraging you, rent first, unless you have to buy for a residency visa. But that was surprising that, properties could be on the market for like 5 years. And it was just so very different. The last thing is that things don't happen on your timeline. And this is where that always present practicing patience is the lesson that Panama will teach you. And you will either embrace it or it'll drive you crazy. I think I've embraced it. I've been here almost 7 years. And so there is the mañana lifestyle. And I think I've adopted some of that too. And I kind of enjoy it. It's nice just to be not so urgent about things. Of course, then when you do have something that is urgent, it's nice to have it responded to immediately, especially if you're dealing with health issues or, your plumbing breaks. But in general, things happen on a different timeline, and it can help develop your patience. So I kind of see that as a positive thing. It's a much more laid-back lifestyle, unless you're living in the city. Thanks for watching this week. I will see you next week. If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments section. Take care.